You know, folks, last week when I did the video talking about the Cruiserweight Classic finale and how I feel WWE should book the Cruiserweights on Raw, I also mentioned the fact that WWE word was going around, and I think a lot of people have been talking about this. WWE's next attempt at doing a tournament similar to this, another Cruiserweight Classic tournament, is to do it with the women. Yeah. WWE wants to, word going around is WWE wants to do the next Cruiserweight Classic featuring women. Now, as potentially great as that sounds, allowing a lot of the women cruiserweights, if you will, to be showcased, I just feel a little bit of dread. Hear me out. Now, like I said, it's potentially great that they want to do this, because there is no doubt there are thousands, if not millions, of women cruiserweights out there. There is. There's among thousands of them. Some, that when you look at it from a MMA perspective, are strawweights. I mean, heck, that's what the UFC has. They have a bantamweight or a featherweight, whatever it is, where Ronda, basically, the women's championship, the UFC's main women's championship is what, the bantamweight or whatever, and that's held by people like Ronda Rousey and Michelle Tate or something like that. I can't think of her name. And then you have the strawweight division. So I can understand WWE wanting to go in the direction of a cruiserweight division, because the cruiserweights will be on the same level as the strawweights in UFC. So that's the only reason I think WWE wants to do it, is they see that UFC is empowering the women in their company by saying, hey, look, we don't just have a bantamweight division, which is our heavyweight division for the women, but we also have a strawweight division, which is basically essentially our cruiserweight division. So I can see that being the reason. And I can see maybe WWE taking an example from UFC and seeing the weight limit maybe for the women there. Now, as potentially great as that sounds for WWE to want to maybe take a page out of UFC and say, okay, let's create our own women's strawweight division, our own women's cruiserweight division, and take the qualifications of the weight limit of the women there in UFC and apply it here. As potentially great as that sounds, again, I feel a little bit of dread. And the reason I feel a little bit of dread is due to the fact that I don't know if WWE will take this as seriously as they did this year's Cruiserweight Classic. Now again, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of women cruiserweights out there that can get in this ring, or get in that ring I should say, and steal the show. Get people off their feet. Get people asking for more. But on the other hand, I don't know if WWE is going to be good on the follow-through. Here's what I mean. WWE put a lot of emphasis and focus on the Cruiserweight division in the Cruiserweight Classic and the crowning of a Cruiserweight champion to be part of Monday Night Raw exclusively, that basically when they did that, it showed a rejuvenation, a reinvigoration, a re-interest, if you will, in the Cruiserweight division, in the Cruiserweights of wrestling. And I'm sorry if I paused there for a second. Our neighbor's dog was barking and my dog was looking around thinking what that could be. Anyway, they basically created an interest, for that division again, to the point that when the Cruiserweight division debuted on Raw last night, it actually got a decent reaction. Now hopefully they can pace it out throughout the 3 hours, but again, it got a decent reaction. However, with that said, the reason I feel a little bit of dread for the women is because as much emphasis as you're putting on the women's division right now for the women's championships on Raw and SmackDown, I don't know if you're going to do the same for your cruiserweight women. I don't know if you're going to do the same for them. I mean, here's the thing. As great as it was to see the cruiserweights on Raw last night and put on a great match for the fans, which they appreciated, you didn't have your whole roster of cruiserweights yet. And you potentially have more coming in the door. So the question is, as great as that was to see them, those cruiserweights and others to come later on, what's going to happen, what's going to happen when you try to do that with the women cruiserweights? Will you put emphasis on them? Will you put focus and importance on them? Hopefully you do. But again, that's why I dread, because the last time a company tried to do a women's cruiserweight division was WCW. And WCW pretty much screwed it up from the beginning. They screwed it up from the beginning due to the fact that a majority of the damn tournament matches, a few were on Nitro, but the rest were on like Pro and Main Event and Saturday Night and Worldwide. I think even the freaking finals was on a taped dark match, on a dark match that was taped for Main Event that took place before Nitro. Or maybe it was on Nitro. I don't know. I can't remember. But that shows you how little of an impact you saw them have. You saw them look at the women's cruiserweight division or the women's cruiserweight championship. It showed you how much, importance, how much emphasis they put on a women's cruiserweight division. Now I understand a lot of people will say, well, Brian, the reason Bischoff did this was because he had a partnership. He and WCW had a partnership with some of these established, if not new and up and coming, all women Japan promotions. I get that. I really do. And I can respect that. But when you allow your women's world title and then mostly your women's cruiserweight title to be focused solely mostly in Japan and defended there, it shows the fact that you really didn't care. All you cared about was, I wanted to be the first at doing something before anybody else did. And true, he did that with a women's cruiserweight title. But what happened in the end? It went to Japan, got defended there exclusively, nowhere else, and it got rebranded and renamed. And the fact is, I dread something similar. Now, I'm not saying similar as to the fact that that women's cruiserweight title could be defended only maybe in Mexico or Japan. I'm not saying that. What I dread is it's going to have little importance during its run, to the point that it's going to go into obscurity after a certain competitor wins it, whether it's a women cruiserweight or whoever. I just feel it's going to have little impact. I fear and dread it's going to follow the same path that the women's tag team titles did back in the 80s and late 80s and early 90s. It's going to have some importance for a few years, and then it's going to get won by a certain tag team. It's going to be one. It got won by. Good. Okay. Let me hear it then. Let me remind you this: the women's tag team titles did have an importance. Didn't have much importance, but they were featured. But as soon, with all due respect, when the Jumping Bombshell Angels, or the Jumping Bomb Angels, if you will, won, which was an all Japan women's team. When the Jumping Bomb Angels won the tag team titles. That was the last we ever heard of them. The Jumping Bomb Angels won the titles, and that was the last we heard of it. So that's what I dread about. That's what I worry about. I mean, when Hornswoggle won the Cruiserweight title, the original Cruiserweight title, that went and became obscure. That went into deactivation. That's what I fear for the Women's Cruiserweight Championship. That they'll have that. Okay, I have no doubt WWE won't put any importance on it for a while. They will. They will put a lot of importance, but I feel and dread that it's going to basically go and become an obscure championship. Like, you'll see it pop up every now and then to be defended, but then nothing. That's what I fear. That's what I fear it's going to happen. Now, hopefully WWE is committed to this whole women's revolution like they've been showing, and that doesn't happen, and they put just as much emphasis on the women's cruiserweight title and the women cruiserweights that are going to be in the company as much as they are with the cruiserweights that are now in the company, and the Cruiserweight Championship that's been rechristened, been reborn, been rebooted into their company. Hopefully they put as equal amount of emphasis and importance on this Cruiserweight Championship as they do the Cruiserweight Championship that TJ Perkins has right now. Hopefully they do that. Hopefully they show it as equal. Hopefully they give it as equal time as the Cruiserweight Championship. They give the women cruiserweights as equal time in the ring to compete for a chance at it, if not for it. And they make it as important as, let's say, the Women's Championship is right now on both Raw and SmackDown. Hopefully they do that. But if not, and it becomes one of those championships that does get a little bit of shine for a while, but then suddenly that shine kind of dies down and it slowly starts to go into obscurity to the point that that championship will be defended on shows like Superstars and Main Event, and that's it. That's why I worry. Because if you are totally committed to this women's revolution, if you're totally committed to it, prove it. Prove it to me. Prove it to everybody that's going to be watching. Prove it. Because you've got a whole peripheral of women cruiserweights, strawweights, whatever you want to call them, out there that are ready, willing, and able to compete in your ring, WWE, for a chance to be the first Women's Cruiserweight Classic winner and potentially the first Women's Cruiserweight Champion. And you know it. You know it. And I think everybody watching this knows that. So hopefully WWE puts some importance on that championship if that's the direction they go with, like they did this year, and they don't screw it up like WCW did. Because I will give WWE credit on one thing. I will give WWE credit on one thing. I will give WWE credit on one thing. Okay? I'll give them credit. When they create a championship, whether they have a partnership with a company in another country or promotion in another country or not, whether they have that or they don't, they always make sure that their championship is defended in their company no matter what. And if somebody doesn't want to play by the rules, they get stripped and may be fired. But at least I'll give WWE credit with the fact that they make sure whatever championship they reinstate or they create or remake or reboot, they make sure it's defended in their company only. So hopefully that'll be the positive that allows WWE to put some emphasis on the Women's Cruiserweight Classic tournament, if not a potential Women's Cruiserweight Championship in the future, because that way, at least maybe if they're committed to the women's revolution like they've been showing with Charlotte and Sasha and Paige Edge and Becky and Alexa and Naomi and Natalia and all that for the main championships on Raw and SmackDown Live, then hopefully they'll do the same thing for a women's cruiserweight title. Hopefully they'll do that. Because if not, what I dread could become a reality, and that is it'll have some shine, it'll have some importance for a while, it'll be featured for a little bit, but then slowly what I fear is it'll go into that obscurity lane. It'll go in the direction that the women's tag titles did in the late 80s and 90s, and where the original Cruiserweight title went after Hornswoggle. With all due respect, Dylan, I know if you're watching, Swoggle went when he won it. So, really, that's all I'm going to say. I mean, I hope they do this right. I pray they make this Women's Cruiserweight Classic, if that's the focus of the next Cruiserweight Classic tournament, the women's version. Hopefully they put just as much importance on it as they did with this year's Cruiserweight Classic, and with the potential of crowning a women's Cruiserweight champion at the end. Hopefully they give that just as much importance, if not as much focus, as they do right now with the current Cruiserweight title, and as they do currently with both the Raw and SmackDown women's titles. So let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. Where do you think the women's Cruiserweight champion... Okay. Let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. And let me know what you guys think about a potential Women's Cruiserweight Classic and a potential Women's Cruiserweight Championship coming out of it. And how do you think WWE will treat it should it become a reality? Comment below. Let me know what you think. And I am out.